Welcome back to Prime Your Midlife. And today it's the channel of the two coaches, in fact, the two Chris's. I'm joined today by Chris Mitchell, who does Chris Mitchell Coaching. And we're going to talk about why people decide to jump off the career ladder. And maybe that's you right now. You're looking at your day. Maybe it's a Friday and it's 4 o'clock and you're just thinking, well, that was another week. Perhaps this conversation could spur you on to make that change that you've always feared. Chris Mitchell, how are you today?
Yeah, really good. And it's great to be involved in the podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you. And I'm looking forward to this, actually, because I've seen some of your work already. And I think there's a lot of value that we're going to get out of this. So you're 30, what are you exactly?
So I'm 35.
35. So traditionally speaking, you're not quite into what we would call midlife, but actually scientifically, things are already beginning to happen underneath that body of yours that are already contributing to some of the things that cause us issues in midlife. So how are you looking into that maybe next 5 to 10 years? Is it mindset or crisis for you for midlife?
I think for me, it is coming up, and it's more of a mindset in that I feel like I have the ability to control where I'm going. It's not something that's going to happen to me. You know, I can look after myself in the exercise that I do, things that I eat, what I drink or don't drink, and also the kind of changes that I'm making in my career and the things that I'm doing. And that actually, if I do the right things now, I'll be able to live a much more meaningful, content, and healthy life as I move into that different phase of my life.
So it's all about taking a proactive decision to really cause the outcomes you want, as opposed to being the victim and letting life almost roll over you and then realizing that you don't like where you're at.
Exactly. And I think where I'm at is that I have choice and the ability to enact it in the things that I'm doing. So actually being able to make those choices and do things as I want them to be means that hopefully I will enjoy midlife more than my kind of early adulthood, where I was still trying to figure things out and I was making decisions maybe not for myself or for others. Actually, I've been building and hopefully have now built a platform for how I want to live my life to be happy and content as I move through that.
Okay, so let's just unpick that, because I know you were very good at getting people perhaps off a path that they don't like and then enabling them to see a more fulfilling future. So how was that for you? Did you spend a period of time where you could look back now and think, actually, I really wasn't doing what was purposeful to me?
Well, yeah, I think it's been a long journey. So when I was in my early 20s, I moved away from home. So I'm originally from Leeds and I moved down south for a job. And what I found at that time is something never quite felt right. But I stayed in the job because perhaps my parents felt like it was the right decision. Everybody around me was developing in their careers. So I stuck it out. But it took me a long time to realize that perhaps I was homesick and actually felt out of place there. So making an empowered decision to leave and move home was a really powerful thing to set me on that path, that I could make a decision for myself. And actually things don't go wrong if you do. And then really what happened is I started to ask myself the question of, well, why am I doing what I'm doing now in Leeds? You know, I'm doing jobs, but not necessarily feeling motivated doing it. So what's happening there? And when I did my last corporate role, I'd started managing and I was doing a lot of mentoring, and I was really enjoying those human elements of my role. I really started to enjoy kind of listening and to people and helping them to develop, which moved my mindset away from being the leader, trying to climb the ladder. And then the company that I was working for had been acquired by some very wealthy individuals. And my role was to effectively help that business make more money in potentially not the sustainable, ethical, purpose-driven way that I was living my life outside of work. And all those things helped me ask myself a question of, well, why am I doing this? What does the future look like if I continue? And are there ways that I can work that give me more fulfillment and I feel like I feel like there is more meaning to what I'm doing as well. And it's a period of reflecting on that over years, not simply over an evening or a weekend, that allowed me to slowly make decisions and explore ways to make changes.
Okay. It's a fascinating point you're making. And I often talk about this as a sort of metaphorical mountain that people are climbing. And the first mountain is the one that reflects yours. You're almost doing it because of societal pressures or to make your parents proud. And then often people get near the top and they either fall off because of something that happens, a big trauma, or somebody pushes them off because they're no longer on the right team to be climbing the mountain. Did you have any of those moments where you just thought, I need to get off this? Or did you choose to sort of climb off gently by yourself?
There was no significant push, but I would say it was a culmination of kind of all the thoughts and then opportunity transpiring. So I did get to kind of my early 30s and was really thinking, well, I have another 30 years of this left if I retire at 65. And 30 years of doing something which I was already questioning. Do I just want to simply make money for other people and earn a salary? So there was that question in my mind. But then doing a university course to explore coaching as a skill helped the path appear. And then having the opportunity to take a settlement agreement from work gave me the choice to stay or to leave. And at that point, I felt like I was able to kind of step off that mountaintop rather than fall off it and be able to make a decision for myself about at least seeing if there was another route or another mountaintop which was empowered by what I wanted. Maybe I'll make a success of it, maybe not, but this period is at least allowing me to explore whether there is another way to develop a professional career and live a lifestyle that I find fulfilling.
Okay. Can I just ask, did you have any responsibilities to others when you're making that decision, either partner or kids, to think, can I afford to jump off this mountain when there's no safety net?
Financial safety net came from the settlement agreement that I got, which has given me a runway. But I have been fortunate that I don't have a family to support now. I do have a girlfriend, but actually financially we're not tied, and I'm supporting myself based on the money that I got. So I'm very privileged in that position. And I think it would make it much more difficult if you had financial obligations, a family to support, or different circumstances. But I try and keep in my mind that right now, while I don't have those ties, that I'm fortunate to be able to explore this.
Okay, because that's often the discussion, isn't it? A lot of people say, yes, but, because they've created this machine and the machine just needs feeding because it's the mortgage, it's the kids, it's the everything that goes along with that. And there could be people sat there saying, well, yes, Chris, that's great that you could take that decision and you had that settlement agreement. But if you didn't have those things, what kind of lessons have you now got within you that says actually it was worth taking that jump anyway off the mountain just because of what you've now found?
Mm-hmm.
How can you enable somebody to think, go on, just be brave and forget about the what ifs, think about the what next?
I'll answer firstly based on the financial, which is the challenge that you gave me. And I think, yes, I may have been lucky to have a settlement agreement, but actually what I learned is that you can flex your lifestyle. So my expenditure halved and is still almost half of what it used to be, which means you can actually extend the money that you bring in, family or not. You can make changes. And what I have learned in that is that the material things don't make you more happy. Actually, you don't even notice that they have gone. Be that a fancy car, shopping in more expensive supermarkets, or just eating out a little bit more than you used to. These don't impact your level of contentment. But also, you do the things that you need to do to stay financially afloat. There are realities that you have to address, and there are really good ways to earn enough to simply cover the essentials that you need. And I can use the metaphor of a runway to extend that runway. And one of the other things that has been really surprising to me is that nobody has judged me for the decisions that I've made or the role that I have taken to keep on this journey. One role that I took for 6 months was a 50% pay cut to what I was used to in the past. Not one person judged me, even though my pride at that point kind of was saying to me, well, you've earned this in the past, you should be earning it now. That wasn't the case, and nobody was bothered. The other thing that I've learned with it is that even though you might be financially less well off in the short term, or it means a new level of lifestyle, the contentment that you can have from doing meaningful work and living a life that you have chosen and are leaning into the skills which are unique to you actually brings much more joy in what you do. I feel so much more relaxed, so much more satisfied, and when I hear how past colleagues are getting on with work, I feel anxious at the stories that they're telling me, but relief that they're no longer my narrative. And when I hear those things, I feel reassured of the decisions that I took.
Okay, some interesting words you talked about there about the fact that you weren't judged, and also your internal pride wasn't one that was questioning your next steps. What would have happened if your friends, peers, colleagues, parents had said to you, oh my goodness, Chris, you are absolutely nuts. How can you walk away from this big corporate? You've got such a future ahead of you. Or your own instinct, your own pride and ego had said, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to take that 50% cut. I'm not prepared not to have the car or the CV that now is reflective of the work that I've done.
Well, then I think that's the choice and the willingness to take a risk. So from an individual perspective, that willingness to CV to be in transition or to let go of certain high-flying jobs or material things which give a certain impression. That really is then down to whether you are willing to take that risk to make a change. Mm-hmm. And in not making a change, you are deciding to stay in a place of comfort, safety, and potentially dissatisfaction. But for me, the risk was worth taking. With society, the one relationship that really suffered was actually the one with my dad. He had a long, very stable, safe career in a building society, which kind of pushed against all the things that I didn't want for myself. And he was the one that couldn't understand. And in that lack of understanding between us both, how could I throw away a career that was going on the right track, that had all the trimmings of what you should expect? That really impacted our ability to connect. And that relationship is now nowhere near as healthy as it was, which is a shame. However, I'm living a life that I have chosen versus the one that he wanted for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, my mum, my wider family, and my closest friends have all been extremely supportive. They are much more liberal about the reasons I've made the decisions, the skills that I'm trying to grow, and being supportive in staying on this track, because they can see the way that I talk more passionately, they can see the way that I'm not frustrated, and that actually I am happy in myself. The one thing that they have done is helped ask questions if I may be making decisions that seem naive or need to be thought through, but still supported and encouraged at the right time. So that's also something that's been really surprising to me, is that whereas I thought people might question me or make judgments, they haven't.
Well, thank you for the honest share, particularly about your dad, and perhaps you might want to listen and see how authentic you are in this new chosen path that you're pursuing. Let's just play devil's advocate. I am now 39-year-old Chris, and I'm facing into a really brilliant career. I've got my next promotion coming up, and I can see the ladders of success ahead of me, but I know that actually I'm being disingenuous with my why and my purpose, but I just can't. I can't. And I'm walking into your office to say, I'm at a massive crossroads, Chris. I know what I want to do, but I just can't face it. What questions or what steps are you going to challenge me with to try to enable me to lean in and jump over that brave fence?
I think from a question perspective, I would be trying to tease out the why and getting it written down in a few succinct sentences in terms of professional, personal life, and then perhaps financially as well. So what is motivating? Why does that feel attractive? And what is it that you really want? And creating a space for that person in a neutral environment to articulate without challenge and without judgment. Because it can be really surprising what that can look like for each individual. Once that is articulated for the next year, for the next 10 years, whatever that looks like, you can ask yourself a question of, well, what is success? Success in terms of the objective things that you want, the money, the status, the things that people can see, but then the subjective things that you think success looks like, the things that only you find satisfying as achievement. For example, being able to spend time at the gym to work on your fitness, or having the ability to do a little bit more learning. These are subjective measures of success. And I think it's important to do the work on supporting that individual that walks into my office to explore what is holding them in that space or not. What are the things that could make change happen? What are the things that are making it difficult to make change? And actually reviewing, are they real? Can they be overcome? And actually, what can be done about it if they decide they want to do something about it?
Okay. And let's just talk about yourself. If you didn't have that settlement agreement, but you knew your why was pushing you to a different path, what would have been the middle ground between leaving and searching for your new destiny? How would you have reconciled that?
I think I would have tried to find more flexibility in my work life. So coaching meant I needed space to engage with individuals one-on-one. The traditional 35 to 40 X hour week does not leave any time to do those things. So that would have meant then perhaps negotiating to work in a more flexible manner. Like I had explored part-time roles, 3 days a week, but at that point, it felt like I wanted to just take the risk and start again. With looking back with the lessons that I've learned, perhaps a slower approach may have been another way to have tried to deal with the change and the transition, where I could have still had the financial stability, but just give me a few days a week to continue exploring. Because actually, I might have decided that I didn't want to do more coaching, or this wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. So it would have just given that enough of a safety net, but with enough flexibility to keep exploring.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about this aspect of going from a really big team, big corporate, big structure, lots of layers of both technical backup and also team backup, to then working for yourself, by yourself, on your own path? How was that to deal with?
So just two main reflections, or maybe three. The first is that one of the main drivers for leaving the corporate world, those big teams, is that you are at the behest of the people that you work with. Some of them are amazing individuals who are supportive, you click with, and you do great work. Others can be really quite toxic. Politics, managers who have got to that position based on being excellent at what they do, but not being good with people. And being out of that, out of the politics, out of not being dealt with in empathetic ways, not having the pressure of what others are doing around you, is actually quite an empowering place to be. So I don't miss that at all. The support perhaps is a challenge in that everything you do now, everything I do now in my business, something that I do myself, the strategy, the marketing, the finance, sales, thinking about my product, even just doing the service. That can be quite a challenge because you have to lean into skills that you don't necessarily have. I've never done marketing before, but I've had to for the last 12 months. And I've never had to sell to anyone, which also is quite difficult when you're asking and trying to convince people to work with you. But these are skills you can learn. But I haven't missed being part of a team because I've invested in networking and finding community and a wider network outside of just me on my own. And there are lots of different ways to make those strong connections that you would have found in a team, but actually are outside of that. And that would be my big piece of the guidance is find communities to connect with something that's bigger than yourself and really invest in those relationships.
Okay. Just for clarity, if anybody's listening, your relationship in your corporate, it was a good one. You left in good terms, and actually you were being given bigger and bigger projects. It's not as if you were in a team whereby Chris was failing and you were not somebody that sort of fitted in. So it was very much your decision to move away from this toxicity or this environment because it just wasn't serving your purpose. Is that a fair reflection?
That's exactly right. I could have continued on that path if I had chosen to. It really was a choice of, we want you to stay within the organization. There is opportunities to exit if you want, but we want to give you 3 months to find a way to stay, whatever that looks like. So yeah, I could have continued on that path if I'd have chosen to. There was even a part-time role that I could have taken. So it really was kind of that as you've explained it, from a point of strength rather than duress that I made the decision.
Okay. So give us a little bit of the bright morning sunrise. Tell us about some of the amazing times, minutes, or feelings that you've had now that you have leaned into this new path.
Well, first of all, the lifestyle is a lot better. I work less, I maybe earn less at the moment, but financially, I'm where I need to be, and that's okay. I can do things like go for a walk in the morning and not feel like I have to be, chained to my desk. Is always how I feel, like chained to a desk. I love having one coaching session in the morning, then being able to have a coffee around that, get my reflections back together, take some time for lunch, and then actually engage with another individual or business, after in the afternoon. And that working pattern and that flow is great. For me, then, like some of the success stories in helping individuals transition their careers where they've been into a management position and they didn't like it because they wanted to be more innovative, or to help a business who was confused about whether they should make investment and the team that they were growing, to actually step back and think more clearly, or even just help people get excited about the changes that they want to make. There's so much more fulfilling, and I have this really strong sense that I've added value, and today was a good day. And not just in I've delivered because I'm contractually obliged to, but I've delivered because I've made a choice to be in a helping role to support people make changes that they want to make. And that's kind of the sunshine for me, is being able to spend my time and invest my energy in a way that actually I leave that call and think, I'm really glad that I was able to make that, even that small impact, but it's an impact that impacts that person's life. If they do make an empowered decision for themselves, or if it's in the business, and one of the businesses I work with was struggling to survive, but then they're still going 3 months after their expected close date. You know, that owner is less anxious, their team is still in place, and it's hopefully going to go from strength to strength from now. These are the things that are really exciting, and when I'm relaxing at night, I can really be at peace with myself that I'm doing work that's really valuable versus adding a few extra digits to the bottom line of a giant multinational business.
Okay. I'm hearing a lot about reflection there, and also going back to that previous answer you talked about with the myriad of so many different things. How do you make the main thing the right thing to do with such a variety of things that are on your desk? How do you walk into a Monday morning and think, no, today this is what's important, and by tonight I'm going to have managed to achieve those things, as a sole business owner that could be distracted with so many different things on a daily basis? What's that technique you've got? And then secondly, you're very reflective in some of the things that you talked about there. How do you reflect on a week or a day to see that you are moving in the way that you wanted to?
Mm-hmm. So the technique for me is, you'll hear a lot about 3 or 5 year planning. I don't really agree with that, even as someone with a strategy background. It's about, I think, much shorter horizons than that. So in the next 12 months, I like to think January to December. What do I want to have achieved, or what do I want that to look like? And then work backwards. So then in the next 3 months, what do I need to have done? And then within the next month, what do I need to have done? And I will write down then the specific actions that will help me towards it. No more than 5 key things per month. And then I will work on those and ignore everything else unless it is urgent. And by focusing in on the things that are a priority, it helped me cut through the noise of the things that I don't need to do. Because it can, on your own, be quite compelling to feel like you need to do everything all at once. But that's not true in things like website design, or as a new business, getting your email in place, or even having the right form to send your invoices. There are certain things that can be good enough and can be done when there's more time, or it really becomes a critical issue. That really helps me focus and do the things. I also have a coach myself to help me step back and think about what I need to do, and I share ideas with them. I also have a mentor, which is more of a directive relationship. And then also I take offers of support from those who give it. If there is someone more experienced who will have a chat with me for an hour, I will take them up on that, and I will share where I'm at and see what comes out. From the perspective of kind of keeping focused and reflecting, I journal relatively regularly, but as a way to kind of get thoughts out of my head. They build, and there's a lot of reflections, and then when it comes a point, I'll get them out. I also do Friday wins every week to remind myself what I've achieved, because it's sometimes difficult to remember. And then, like, as I mentioned, everything that is a priority, I will sit down and score myself against it. Have I achieved it? If I have, I can add the next priority. If I haven't, I'm not hard on myself about it, but then try and find new ways to hit that goal because it feels important for my business. And all those things that help me stay focused and motivated what I want to achieve.
Yeah, lots of things that really resonated with the 3 and 5 year plan. If we look back, well, 3 years ago, we were literally just facing into lockdown. In fact, probably about now, we were about to be locked.
Yeah.
And if we had that 3 year plan, well, it would have literally been ripped up because everything changed. And even this week, Swiss Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, huge things that are happening still, that the plan has to be adapted and changed. I really like the journal thing. And I really also love that aspect. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be done. The invoice doesn't quite have to be looking amazing, but the invoice does have to be dispatched in order for you to get paid. So some really nice shares there. Thank you very much. And I'm very much a creature of habit with some of those things as well, of the daily scores, the daily reflection, and that seems to be resonating a lot around the coaching world. And also that ability to ask for help, having the coach, having the mentor, and being totally okay to accept the personality or the assistance from somebody else when they offer it. Because the ladder's there, well, let's climb it, but get somebody else to drag us up at the same time. Beautiful. Okay, I know we're conscious of time. Are there 3 things that you really would like to leave the listeners with, or the watchers with, to encourage them to be brave and to take that step and to think that life doesn't have to be changed to a desk or be subjected to toxicity of those people that don't understand you? What would be those 3 things that you'd really like to share some value with from your own personal experience of getting off that one treadmill and moving into a more exciting, I don't know, fairground merry-go-round of ups and downs?
Number one, of all the things I said, the key thing is reflecting on your why. Why are your feet hitting the ground every morning? Why have you chosen to do the work that you're doing? Why are you building the lifestyle that you have? And are you doing the things that actually help you to find a meaningful purpose? Write it down, explore the thoughts in your mind, but by being able to articulate your reason, it becomes much easier to then start to do things to live your why. I think the second is to be open to listening to others around you. They will give you different perspectives, they will challenge you, they will tell you what they think. So hear them, hold it, but then use that and then your own reflections to do what you think is right for you. Being brave enough to take a risk if it feels like the right risk to take without being reckless. And third, for me, is you don't have to always go in feet first. You can take small steps to begin that journey of change. For me, I started doing a coaching accreditation because I wanted to be more effective at consulting and supporting the senior leadership team that I was working with, to support them rather than tell them. That small step of doing a course at university actually helped me explore a skill that I wanted to develop. That small step then opened up the pathway to the next change in me getting closer to my why. I didn't just take the step and I'm not just here from one day to the next. So breaking things down into more manageable ways of making change, I think, is the most effective way of doing it because it feels less scary that way too.
Okay. Your why then, Chris, you talk about that a lot. Where did you get inspiration on how to find your way? Was it a book? Was it a learning? Was it just a momentary pause of life and you just thought, goodness me, this isn't working for me?
It was a sense of, yeah, it was the long term. I've got 30 more years to do this. Do I want to keep doing this when my boss is earning more than me? So that would be the next run, more money, but working more and perhaps with more stress. So that's what I would get from the next ladder. 30 more years, more money, more stress, and less time for myself. And the answer was no, I don't want. I found myself in that I didn't feel like I was as interested in being that senior leader or that person at the top. I kind of realized that was not a motivator for me, especially because I'd financially got to a position that I was happy with. I didn't feel like I needed any more. And then it was a sense of fulfillment that I was getting from managing, mentoring, and then doing more of the listening in some of the roles that I was getting. And it was in those moments that I would be walking home or sat at my desk thinking to myself, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that more than my day job in front of me. Why was that? What was it about that interaction? And over time, I started to realize that it's been in that helping role. I'm more motivated by helping someone than I am leading them and being their boss. I'm more motivated to listen. I really like to listen and ask challenging questions. So actually, can I be in a role where I'm given that skill? And these questions then lead to answers, but you have to do a bit of research perhaps, and you have to think about things. And it was in that process that the answer appeared. It was not necessarily a academic, intellectual, I need to think about this, here is the answer. It was something that came through exploration and noticing, but then doing something with what I'd noticed.
Okay. And what would be your sentence that would describe your why?
I think it's to have a work-life balance where I am in a role, I am living in a way that I can use my skills to listen, to challenge, and support others to help them achieve their definition of success.
Nice. Just going to go back a little bit and ask you a question about your dad on the basis they had a very stable career, one company, one building society. Was there any aspect of that that was driving your force for change?
I had an interesting conversation with him the summer before I started the coaching course at university. He had only been a few months out of retirement, and we were sat having a beer in the sunshine. And I'd asked him, how do you feel about your work in the past? And he said, oh, well, I'm yesterday's man. Things have moved on, and nobody really thinks about or cares about the things that I did anymore. And this was 5 months after he'd retired, after a 30+ year career, and mostly at that one company. And he summarized it as, well, no one really remembers me no one really thinks about me or the things I did anyway. And I just was almost shocked that it could be so laissez-faire, that you'd worked all that time, put all that energy in, to have the simple reflection that no one cares anyway. And I don't want to spend my rest of my working life doing something that actually nobody cares about. And the people that I work with now, if they remember the change that I helped them make, or their life has changed in a different path because of the little bit of work that we did together, well, then I feel like that's so much. I would hope if I had the same conversation with my son or daughter in 30 years' time, that my answer would be, well, I feel really satisfied about the things that I've been able to help people do and be really proud of that.
I'm just going to say well done. I know it's a bit cheesy, but that last answer, it was really, really authentic. And anybody that sat there on the edge, just go back and play that answer again and ask yourself, do I really want to be carrying on the path that is not fulfilling me? Chris Mitchell is available. You can go to chrismitchellcoaching.co.uk. If you like the sound of his voice today and you like the sound of his vision and his purpose and the way he'll hold your hand and take you through that valley of confrontation or that valley of uncertainty, then please reach out for him. Any closing words today, Chris?
Oh, it's been really good being part of the conversation, and I hope that, yeah, my authentic self has come across, and I'm glad that, I hope that hearing me kind of reflect on the decisions I've made could maybe help someone else think about maybe where they're at in their life or career too.
I'm sure you will, and I'm looking forward to seeing those stories shared in the networking group that we have, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there soon. Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.